Hey, I'm Blair Best. It's Tuesday here on The Story, and tonight it's back to school for tons of kids across the state. And some students got to ride in a first-of-its-kind bus out in Beaverton that could become a model for districts across the state. Plus, as President Trump threatens National Guard deployment in blue cities, is Portland on his radar? What Governor Tina Kotek has to say. But first, major cities across America are moving away from harm reduction drug policies, but that is not the case for the Portland metro area. It's our big story tonight.
It's become this political flashpoint over the years, but in actuality, it's really a set of practical strategies to reduce the harms of use.
Okay, harm reduction is nothing new in Multnomah County. The approach is meant to help people struggling with addiction, allowing them to do drugs safely with the idea that eventually they reach recovery. Now, those running a booth at OHSU Farmers Market this morning are advocates of the practice. Today, they handed out free naloxone, the overdose reversal medication, and gave lessons on how to use it. Experts say harm reduction saves lives, given how deadly drugs like fentanyl have flooded our streets in recent years. Here's Honora Englander, a professor of medicine at OHSU.
I think it's unquestionable that harm reduction saves lives, and we know that harm reduction really is a set of practical strategies and also a core philosophy that's really rooted in sort of a respect for and understanding of the experience of people who use drugs.
Groups that work in harm reduction often hand out naloxone like you just saw. Some also give out safe smoking supplies like foil, pipes, and straws used for smoking fentanyl or meth. And there's also needle exchange programs. Those are free, clean syringes for people who inject drugs. We met a man named Michael in Portland's Old Town neighborhood today. He's addicted to fentanyl and tells me having clean needles keeps him and others safe.
I think it's good, actually. I know it's good. I've seen people digging in the dirt for needles in states where they don't have harm reduction, but, here you can just, there's, it sounds awful, but there's needles aplenty. People can get clean needles and they're not sharing them, and some people can't get enough meth while smoking it, so they got to shoot it up.
Multnomah County has funded these harm reduction efforts for years. In this year's budget, $6 million went towards the practice. The county says that $6 million covers more than just drug supplies. It also includes counseling services, overdose prevention education, and sexual health services, with a target of reaching 8,000 people.
They're going to get needles somehow, and it's definitely, this is the best way to do it.
If you didn't have the free needles, would you stop using?
No, that's not how that works. People are going to use regardless.
A spokesperson for the Multnomah County Health Department told me today, we are not changing evidence-based public health practices that help keep people alive. Recovery and harm reduction are not mutually exclusive. Harm reduction prevents overdose deaths and the spread of communicable disease, ultimately improving people's chances of finding stability and recovery. Now, as you might imagine, there are people here in Portland and beyond who do not support this work.
If they think harm reduction, quote unquote, which is harm destruction, is a good idea, then they're out to lunch.
Todd Littlefield is part of the Lentz Neighborhood Livability Association and sees the side effects of the addiction crisis daily.
So if we're enabling them, providing them, handing out these drug supplies, what's the incentive? It's destroyed the neighborhood and it's destroyed Portland.
All right, take a look. These piles of tree limbs, Todd put them there to try and stop people from setting up tents outside his Southeast Portland home. He also plays loud music from a speaker on his garage to make it harder for people to sleep outside. As for drug use and drug supplies, yeah, he sees that too.
Well, I had a gal once drop off 3,500 needles on my property, and I asked her what she was doing. I said, clean that up. She left the boxes behind. They contained 100 needles per box. There's 35 boxes. There's tinfoil everywhere. There's needles everywhere. What are these people doing with it? They're doing drugs that will eventually kill them. Well, I think it's backwards. I think harm reduction is a very clever clever and evil term that it means the opposite of what it is. I mean, you're perpetuating and enabling the eventual death of these people.
I understand where that perception may come from, but harm reduction is not an enabling crisis. We're not encouraging people to use drugs. We're supporting people's real needs in that real moment.
Okay, let's take a step back and look at what other cities are doing when it comes to the addiction crisis, because this is not just a Portland problem. Across the country, communities are turning away from harm reduction efforts and moving toward recovery-first models instead. That's according to a New York Times article published this week that we think is worth your time. Jan Hoffman is a health reporter covering drug addiction for The Times. She writes, cities move away from strategies that make drug use safer. San Francisco, Philadelphia, and others are retreating from harm reduction strategies that have helped to reduce deaths, but which critics, including Trump, say have contributed to pervasive public drug use. San Francisco's new mayor has banned city-funded distribution of smoking supplies in public places like parks, while expanding treatment centers and recovery housing. Philadelphia stopped funding syringe programs and made it harder for mobile outreach teams to give out overdose reversal kits, while increasing police presence in areas with open-air drug markets. And parts of California have also shut down syringe exchanges. That's according to the Times article.
They're on the right path. And Multnomah County has failed the city of Portland, the residents of Portland, and the people that are doing drugs. Absolutely failed them.
And this is my professional opinion, not the opinion of OHSU necessarily. I think that those policies are going to have real harms. And I think that we need an array of approaches and an array of policies. You know, treatment and accessing treatment there are a lot of barriers for people. And those barriers really occur at a whole wide range.
Last month, President Trump signed this executive order titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. In it, he criticized harm reduction efforts and threatened to pull federal funding from groups that support it. The executive order reads in part, ensure grants issued by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration fund evidence-based programs and do not fund programs that fail to achieve adequate outcomes, including harm reduction or safe consumption efforts that only facilitate illegal drug use and its attendant harm. The president also wants to support expanding drug courts and mental health courts, while directing the Attorney General to review federally funded groups that knowingly give out drug paraphernalia to see if they are in violation of federal law, and if so, freeze their federal funding. But let's go back to Michael, the homeless man I met in Old Town today. Harm reduction efforts are meant to help people like him. However, he says he's been on the streets for 10 years, and while he knows where to get drug supplies, he doesn't know where to get treatment, even if he wanted it.
The free supplies don't really offer recovery. They just offer a clean solution or whatever, like for using your drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know where to get clean. That's why I'm out here still. So.
Okay, let's hear it. What do you think about harm reduction efforts? Do you support it? Why or why not? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, an overnight homeless shelter in Northwest Portland that's drawn a lot of controversy now has an opening date, a week from today. It's at Northwest 14th and Northrop and will start with 40 beds before scaling up to 100 beds after the first month. The city says it could eventually have up to 200 beds. It's also low barrier, meaning people who stay there don't have to be sober. The plan is part of Mayor Keith Wilson's goal to open 1,500 new overnight shelter beds by December 1st to end unsheltered homelessness by the end of the year. With this shelter, that number of new beds sits at 630, less than half of what he wants with just 3 months to go. The site will be run by the Salvation Army. Meanwhile, today the city of Portland launched its national search for a new city administrator. The current city administrator, Michael Jordan, is retiring at the end of the year after Mayor Keith Wilson asked him to stay beyond this summer, when his contract was supposed to expire. Now, the role of a city administrator is new for Portland, part of the overhaul to our new form of government. That person is basically the mayor's right hand, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the city's $8.6 billion budget and 6,800 employees. Portland's job posting for the gig shows it will pay between $284,000 and $393,000 a year. Michael Jordan is the highest paid city employee right now, making around $312,000 annually. That's according to the Oregonian. Applications will be reviewed starting September 25th, and the hiring process will include several rounds of interviews with city leaders, staff, and community groups. Now, Mayor Wilson decides who moves forward. That person will then have to be confirmed by City Council. Mayor Wilson says he hopes to make his choice in the fall, with the new administrator starting either late this year or in early 2026. Okay, coming up next on the story, we wade into the controversy surrounding President Trump mobilizing the National Guard in U.S. cities like L.A. and Washington, D.C.
Next should be Chicago, because as you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now.
The major pushback and the war of words from those in Illinois, and what Oregon Governor Tina Kotek told us about the possibility of something similar happening here in Portland. That's when the story returns.
You got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to do your job. Whatever it takes to do your job, you got to do your job.
Well, these days, President Donald Trump has taken on the responsibility to tell National Guard troops where to go. Over the weekend, it was reported Idaho will be one of 19 states sending National Guard members to assist with immigration enforcement and crime. There will be a total of about 1,700 troops in this mission. But for now, it appears the Guard members from Idaho will only represent a small part of the mission in an administrative role rather than out in the streets like we've seen in Washington, D.C. The Idaho National Guard saying they will provide 14 people to support 3 ICE offices around the southern part of the state. And they'll do office work, enabling ICE to put more agents in the field and work with ICE staff on support plans, along with tasks like case management and data entry. Now, that is set to begin as early as next week. The Department of Defense has authorized the National Guard to provide support through November 15th. Idaho Governor Brad Little clarified that the mission does not include sending Guard members to places like D.C. for crime prevention, at least not yet. Writing, quote, "As Commander-in-Chief, I am proud that the Idaho National Guard always stands ready to support our federal partners in any capacity that strengthens public safety and national security. Our Guardsmen are trained, disciplined, and committed to serving the people of Idaho and the nation." Now, the National Guard in each state is under the direction of its governor. The Guard itself is administered by the National Guard Bureau, which is a joint venture of the Army and the Air Force under the Department of Defense. There is, however, a provision that allows the president to federalize the National Guard and put it under his control. The first deployment of the National Guard into states for things like crime prevention happened in Los Angeles, and most recently, Washington, D.C. President Trump has also threatened to do it in other Democrat-led places like New York City and Chicago. But this week, the Illinois governor fired back, kicking off a war of words with the president.
The state of Illinois is ready to stand against this military deployment with every peaceful tool we have. We will see the Trump administration in court. We will use every lever at our disposal to protect the people of Illinois and their rights. Finally, to the Trump administration officials who are complicit in this scheme, to the public servants who have forsaken their oath to the Constitution to serve the petty whims of an arrogant little man, to any federal official who would come to Chicago and try to incite my people into violence as a pretext for something darker and more dangerous, we are watching, and we are taking names.
Okay, he went on to call the president a wannabe dictator. And unless you've been living under a rock for the last decade, you know that President Trump is often quick to fire back when it comes to name calling. And that was certainly on display today.
And they're going to fight me. Like this slob of a governor you have in Illinois. This poor guy got thrown out of his business by his family. He's governor of Illinois. And he goes about Trump, we don't need his help. Chicago is the worst. These places are really bad. So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, you know, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime.
Meanwhile, back here in Oregon, Governor Tina Kotek told us yesterday the state has received no indication from the Trump administration that Oregon is being targeted for military deployment.
I think it's unconscionable the way the Trump administration has been putting troops in American cities. Crime is not the issue here. It is a show of power and strength. I would prefer to make it very clear to the Trump administration we have local law enforcement who is doing their job, going after criminals, enforcing community safety. We're doing our job. We don't need any help. There is no community safety crisis in Oregon. We are not requesting any help from the federal administration. I have faith in local law enforcement to do their job.
And while we're talking about the federal government, the state of Washington is in the crosshairs of the president's transportation secretary, who is threatening to pull millions in federal money for the state's failure to enforce the Department of Transportation's English language proficiency requirements. Secretary Sean Duffy says Washington, California, and New Mexico have 30 days to comply with an order that he signed in May, requiring the drivers of commercial trucks who don't meet the department's standards to be removed from the road. Now, this comes after a truck driver was accused of making an illegal U-turn that caused a wreck, killing 3 people in Florida this month. Federal officials said the undocumented driver failed an English language proficiency test when they interviewed him last week.
This driver in Florida had received a CDL in Washington, California, and was pulled over in July for speeding, and no doubt couldn't speak the English language. Law enforcement in New Mexico did not take his rig out of service. So this one driver touched all 3 states. Based on our review, they are not complying with our rule. This is not just about saying we have some obscure rule that we want them to comply with, that truck drivers speak English proficiently. This is about keeping people safe on the road. Your families, your kids, your spouses, your loved ones, your friends, we all use the roadway. And we need to make sure that those who are driving big rigs, semis, can understand the road signs, that they've been well trained.
Well, coming up next on the story, we'll stay on the roads, but back to school style.
This was originally a proof of concept project to see that it was possible. It works great.
Something old becomes new. How the Beaverton School District turned one of its old diesel buses into a new member of its electric fleet. That's when the story returns. Well, the KGW School Supply Drive is going on now, and one of the best ways you can help is to give online. Just go to kgw.com/school and click Donate Cash. When you give online, you'll receive a Columbia Sportswear Employee Store Pass. We want to thank On Point Community Credit Union, Safeway, and Rick's Custom Fencing for everything they're doing to make this year's supply drive a success.
As Beaverton students head back to class, some of them will be riding in a first-of-its-kind school bus in Oregon. They call it a repower, an old diesel engine with 2,000 moving parts converted to full electric, which has 10 for half the price, producing less than half the noise with zero emissions. That's not a golf cart. That's a full-sized electric school bus.
Chris, what we have is a 2016 Bluebird bus that was a diesel bus, and we've converted over to an electric bus. It cost about $200,000 to do this. For the same bus, brand new, is $500,000. So this is a real opportunity for districts.
Here goes nothing. Hop in the old seat here. Foot on the brake. Turn the key. And we are rolling. Oh, it's quiet. Beaverton already runs the state's largest electric fleet.
We're the largest transportation department in the state. We operate right now 50 electric buses. We'll be operating 100 electric buses by the end of this school year.
But this conversion was a first and a test.
This was originally a proof of concept project to see that it was possible. It works great. This is a good alternative for school districts that may not have the resources or the ability to get grants as we were fortunate enough to get.
It wasn't easy. The nonprofit Fourth had to assemble funding partners and technology providers to pull it off.
We had to pull together the sources of funding. We had to find the technology provider who could come in and retrofit the engine in the vehicle. We had to pull all of the project partners together and keep them moving through the process, and then really trying to document this to create a playbook for other school districts.
So why do it?
The reason why we did this to begin with was to bring the cleanest climate and cleanest environment to our community members as possible. We specifically focused in on historically underserved students.
And Beaverton didn't hesitate to take the lead.
Very few people in the country have done a repower. Who wants to embark on this project with us? Beaverton was right there to step up and say, that sounds really challenging, sign us up. And they've just been a leader in the state and really in the country on making this transition to electric school buses.
A quieter, cleaner ride rolling out just in time for the first day of school. The district transports about 28,000 students each day. By the end of this school year, nearly a third of Beaverton's fleet will be electric. Chris McGinnis, KGW News.
And as many schools welcome kids back to the classroom today, students were met with new rules around cell phones. You may remember earlier this year, Governor Tina Kotek signed an executive order mandating a bell-to-bell cell phone ban in public schools. It requires districts to have policies in place by Halloween and to fully implement them by 2026. Now, Portland Public Schools implemented an off and away cell phone policy last spring. Harriet Tubman Middle School made students place their phones in bags during the school day. New data shows the school saw increases in math and reading scores.
We're seeing an increase in teaching time in every class. And in addition, it's impacting our academics. Students are more engaged in participating in classroom discussions.
And not only that, but school leaders at Harriet Tubman also say they saw a big drop in student absenteeism after starting the new phone policy. Now, it will be interesting to look at test scores next summer after the governor's cell phone ban takes full effect statewide in January. Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW+, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.